a quick testimony to get you set for this. I've been married now. My husband and I have been married now for 11 years. And when I got married to my husband, I was 37 years old. Yeah, there's hope. I was 37 years old, and about a week before about maybe a month, I should say, before we got married, my doctor explained to me that my likelihood to have children was no. Okay, he said that, you've had some health challenges, and so having kids is going to be a problem for you. So that bothered me. As a matter of fact, on my wedding day, I was struggling with that thought in my head. Okay? So once I got married, of course, my focus was to try to figure that out. And it's so funny, we had a series of issues and challenges. Let me get you on mic, sweetie. Here you go. We had a series of issues and challenges from the get-go that I'm sure Jason's going to talk about in his presentation. And it wasn't long afterwards that we figured out the issue, we got help, and I was pregnant within two and a half years with my first son. And as I mentioned earlier in my presentation this morning, my mother, who I'm the youngest of three, knew all of my nieces and nephews, and so she was really waiting for my child to come. And she died. I was 8 months pregnant when she died. To add insult to that, when she died, I was not able to go to her funeral. I was pregnant. No airline would take me. It was too far to drive. My doctor was trying to work things out. So it was the worst experience of my entire life. And because of that, I'm going to be honest and say this. I was a little upset with God. I really had kind of shut off myself from a lot of things. Depression definitely had set in. And so for years, I kind of had this agreement with God. Most people know me for singing. I had a couple people tell me, oh, I've got your album or whatever. And so most people know me for singing. And so when I had that episode happen to me, I kind of had this agreement with God. Don't ask me for nothing, and I won't ask you for anything. And I literally, that was the way it was for me for a while, years actually. Where this whole came about is once my son came along, I never really knew what my husband did. I'm going to be honest with you. And Jason finds this funny because he didn't realize that I didn't know what he did. I knew he did financial seminars, and I knew he worked with people, and he was working with a hedge fund, and he was doing all this stuff with money, but I didn't really understand it. So when people ask me, what did your husband do? I would be like, I really couldn't tell you. Not intelligently, exactly. And so we were in Bermuda he was doing a series of seminars in Bermuda. And because my son was so young, anytime he would be in the midst of any kind of a seminar, I may be there for the beginning, but of course I had this 2-year-old was acting up, so I would have to get up. So I never saw the thing. Honestly, for years, I never saw it from the beginning to the end. I would see the beginning. Sometimes I would see a little bit of the middle, and most of the time I would get the end. But I had never seen the entire presentation all the way through until I had been married for about 6 years. Now, that sounds funny, even to Jason, because he didn't realize that that was happening. I mean, think about it. He doesn't know. We were in Bermuda, and for the first time, because his cousin watched my kids, I saw what he did from the beginning to the end. Now, during this time, what's interesting is he had helped Mount Pisgah, our church in Miami, get out of debt. They had 9 years left on the mortgages. It was more than one. You know that, it was more than one. And in the 9 years, they got it down to 5 months. No, it was 5 years. Got it down to 9 months. I always get that flipped. 9 months, and the pastor never told the church. They were using the same giving levels that was already coming, and it was just I hate to say this because it sounds so deceptive, but it was a slide of how to utilize the same funds, basically. It wasn't any magic to it. There was no cheating. It was just a slide of those funds, and he will explain that to you in this particular presentation. That's why I really want you to sit as close as you can, because what's going to happen is it will disrupt what you think you know. Does that make sense? It's going to really disrupt what you already know. I've had people say, oh, well, I pay an extra payment every year, and that's going to cut my mortgage down. No, this is not that. I've heard people say, oh, I pay biweekly on my car, and I'm going to pay it off. This is not that. This is truly an understanding of how banks literally take your money, the same money you already have, and they use technology to flip it 50 times. How many of you have ever had a check somebody give to you, and you take it to the bank, and they say they have to hold it for 10 days, 5 days, okay. Many people don't understand that they really could look at a computer and tell if the check is good. With today's technology, it does not take them 10 days to clear that money. But because of your credit, or because of your relationship with the bank, or because of whatever, sometimes you've had some overdrafts or anything, they use anything against you to say, I'm going to make money off of this individual because I am. So what they do in that 10 days that they hold your check is they flip that thing 50 times. They made the check 10 times by the time you get a hold of it. And they use algorithms. They use software. Everything a bank does is tied to software. So basically, the computer will tell the teller, for this particular individual, because of their credit score, because of their history with the bank, because of the length of time they've been with the bank, we need to hold this particular check for 5 days, or 8 days, or 2 days, or however many days it is. And in that time, they know how much they're going to make from that check by the time you get it. Does that make sense? Now, I have had many times my bank say to me, I remember once I wrote a check from one of my accounts to another account that I had just opened at a credit union. And they said to me they were going to hold my check. I said, no, you are not. They said, well, what do you mean? You're not going to do it. It's my check. I know the check's good. What are you holding for? Well, that's our policy. No, it's not. I know enough to know that that's not the policy. That's just you just trying to make money off of me. And many of us don't know that we can refuse that. A lot of times, it's because you don't have another banking solution. And they know that. Okay? You don't have a choice. So you wait the 10 days. You wait the 5 days, or however many days it is, because you don't know. In the same way, the things that we're going to learn this afternoon, and I'm going to keep a microphone for your questions, but what you want to do is we're going to just try to hold this out a little bit. See enough of it, because you're going to be, your hands are going to pop up quick, because you're going to think you understand, but I need you to just hold on for just a moment. Let's get to a place where he'll stop and say, are there any questions? And then I'll give you an opportunity to ask at that time. Is that good? All right, y'all ready? You might need a piece of paper, a pen. I'm just giving you some heads up here, because I definitely want you to hold on. Now, there's a booklet that goes with this class, but usually we are in a place where we can offer that booklet to you, but we did not do that because it is the Sabbath and there's a small fee for the book. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine as long as you have a pen and a piece of paper. If you're in college or in high school, You're getting this information early enough that you can change the way you live your life. Okay? Everybody good? Are we ready? All right, I want to introduce to you my husband. His name is Jason Thomas. He has a finance degree from Oakwood University, and he has worked in all realms of finance. As I mentioned to you earlier, he's owned a mortgage brokerage company down in Miami for 6 years, and he's also managed a company, ran hedge funds in Panama City, Panama. And so now instead of helping people get into debt, he's helping people get out of debt. He considers himself a recovering mortgage broker. Please welcome Mr. Jason Thomas.
All right. Thank you, my love. It's always great to have a partner that works with you, isn't it? You know, it makes a major difference in life. One of the toughest decisions I had to make was getting married and then deciding who to marry. And you don't realize how serious that is until you're actually in it, because it's life-changing, isn't it? Whether it's the right person or the wrong person, the implications of that are generational, because kids are produced from that. They take something from you, they take something from your partner, and this is not something that we can turn around and reverse at the end of the day, isn't it? And so that's the challenge. So there was one thing that was quite interesting as I was really determining who to marry. Because as a bachelor in South Florida, you're going to have options, aren't we, at the time? But it was a very wise man who came to me who actually knew me quite well and knew what my dilemma was. And he knew Carmen. And he said to me something very interesting. He said, Jason, if you want to build a city, you marry this girl over here, who he knew. But if you want to build a nation, you marry Carmen. And that was the decision that I made. And to this day, we're a nation building. So it makes a big difference. And it comes down really to the choices that we make in life, how we go about making them. Before we get into the seminar, let's have a quick word of prayer. Father in heaven, we thank you so much for everyone that has come out this evening. Open our hearts, open our minds to this information so that it will not only impact us individually, but impact our communities and impact our nation as we are all here for nation building. Bless each and every one of us. We do ask and pray. Amen. It's always difficult for us to do these financial seminars and just simply share this information, but we don't deal with the underlying problem that we all have. And what is that? Is how we think. Now, what's interesting, we are in a very unique position because we do these financial seminars in both Adventist churches and non-Adventist churches. And I would say about 80% of the seminars that we do are in non-Adventist churches. And it's always interesting because we get to talk very intimately with the board, with the pastors. We get to see the numbers. You know, you can say one thing from the pulpit, but then it's another thing when you're sitting down one-on-one and you're looking at the numbers. Okay? So we actually get to validate what we actually see and actually interact with the members and interact with the board and interact with the pastors. So we get to really see intimately how pastors think, how members operate, and there's always a distinct difference between how Adventist churches operate and non-Adventist churches operate. And I'm going to give you a couple of them from what we've noticed. I grew up 4th or 5th generation Adventist. I remember talking to my granddad, who was born in Clarendon, Jamaica, and he talked about what it was like for him as a shoe cobbler. And then when he came to the United States, went to England first, then my dad moved from Jamaica to England. My parents met in England, and I was born in the UK, and then came to the States. My grandfather was a butler for a number of years, and then was reminded of what it was getting all the family over from Jamaica to the United States, and one by one, and we know how the story goes, there's always kids that get left behind, right? And these are the trials that we had to deal with. And my grandfather finally moved to West Palm Beach. And they attended Ephesus Church. And my grandfather was about 65 years old when he bought his first Jaguar. And he wanted to just finally, his goal was always to have a nice car. And he finally was able to get one at 65, but was only able to drive it for 4 years before we started to realize that his depth of vision was not the best, and it was only for 4 years before we realized we had to take him off the road. And he finally paid the house off. And my grandfather said to me, "Grandson, it is not about money for us. It is only about getting the message of God's soon return." And so there was never the focus of making money. And I noticed growing up for our family, though our family did well, my father owns an electrical contracting company in Huntsville, but we were always taught that money was never a focus at all. It was secondary for us. And it was interesting because I grew up really believing that to have money meant that you were being pious. And for some reason, there was always a disconnect between wealth and righteousness, right? For those who had money, they were unrighteous. And I remember living in Huntsville at Oakwood, and all the focus was amongst the theology students was about the sanctuary and how the sanctuary looked, about why our church differed from every other church. And I had a discussion with my wife just recently as we were in Maryland the other day. And we went down this main road in Upper Mulholland, Maryland, and we saw a church that occupied about maybe 6 or 7 blocks. It had the church, it had about 4 or 5 different businesses. And I said, wow, this is interesting. Church has a bank. It has dry cleaners. It has all of these different services. And all of a sudden, they're able to impact the lives of thousands in their community. Meanwhile, we're in the corner behind a pew talking about sanctuary or talking about the Sabbath. There's nothing wrong with that, but it has to be in context. It's sad in our churches that when we look at the Bible, one of the subject matters that is talked almost the most is about money. Am I right, Pastor? But for some reason, we never put as much emphasis on that as we do other subject matters. And what ends up happening, it plays out in our reality, doesn't it? Here's a good example. For years, we talked about a health message. We talked about, do you remember the time when cigarettes, how many remember flying on a plane in the back, the Eastern Airlines, and for those who smoke, sat in the back of the plane? It's in some of our lifetimes, obviously for not the younger generation, but we can remember where you could actually smoke on a plane. But we were talking about the negative habits of smoking 40 to 50 years ago, weren't we? We were talking about vegetarianism for years, were we not? We even had some of our own stores, did we not? And then what ended up happening? There are those who did not even heard our message while we were sitting in a corner having other discussions, took it and did what with it? Run with it. Isn't that what happens to us all the time? Now, we are supposed to be about what? Kingdom building. Is that correct? What is the one thing that it takes in order to kingdom build? Money. Does it not? So why is it that our Father, who has mansions on a hill, but yet we have nothing here? to help assist in the kingdom building that we believe that we can do and assist in accomplishing. Isn't that correct? We've been taught that no one can do better than us, correct? But someone else has the resources and we don't. So there's a disconnect between what we know to be true and what our reality currently is. There's a book that I want all of you all to write down. It's called Decisive. How to make better choices in life and work. And I want to point out something to you that is very interesting. The 4 villains of decision making. I'm going to give you a couple of them, and I'm going to point out to you where we stand in this. There's a thing called the spotlight decision, making decisions. Let me explain to you what that means. What that means is that we can go to church and there's an orchestra. Let's say there's a choir, okay? And you see the choir up front here, but then on the side is the pianist on the side. The choir sounds excellent, and we focus the attention on the lead singer, but we never focus on the accompaniment. And so what ends up happening is the spotlight is actually on the choir, but not on the accompaniment, the pianist on the side. So what happens in life, we tend to focus on what's happening with the lead singer and the choir, but miss the person in the corner and how we make our decisions. It's called the spotlight decision, and that messes us up in a major way. Here's another one, which is very, very important. The confirmation bias. Seeking out information that bolsters our belief. Don't we have a habit of talking amongst ourselves to support a viewpoint that we already have, Isn't that true? And we'll make a point, and then our brother over here seconds it as if it becomes fact simply because there's only 2 or 3 of us together, and then we verify an argument that all of us already believe in, as opposed to having that debate with somebody else on the outside. And that's what happens in life with what we do, that the faith that we have is based, which to some degree becomes a false faith because our belief system has never been tried and tested by anybody else. And so for Carmen and I, as we travel and we see these different things, why is it that every other church, with whatever they believe in, has systems in place to rope in, bring in millions of people, whether it be via television programs, whether it be offering services? Every time we go to Maryland and we go to eat, there's a vegetarian spot called Soul Vegetarian, is it not? Run by the Hebrew Israelites and some of the best food. It's not canned food, is it? Best food. And they have people from all over the place coming to eat their food. But yet, we had a mission, didn't we? And we've lost it. And so for us, as we do these financial seminars, the first thing that we talk about is mindset and how we view money. And that has changed. So let me read something to you, because as we go through this, there is this text. As we go through the talents. And the other day, Carmen and I were having this discussion about it. Here's the parable of the talents, which is in Matthew 25, 14 through 30. Listen to this very carefully. For it will be like a man going on a journey, who called his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, right? To another 2. To another 1, and to each according to his ability. Okay? Then went away. He who had received the 5 talents went at once and traded with them and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug it in the ground and hid his master's money. Now, after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I have made 5 talents more. His master said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also, who had the 2 talents, came forward, saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here, I have made 2 talents more. His master said unto him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into joy of your master. He also had received, who had received the 1 talent, came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went and hid your talent in the ground. Here you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have invested my money with bankers, and at my coming I shall have received what was my own with interest. What I want to share with you today is that for some of us, our talents have been stripped from us. As a church, our talents have been stripped from us because we had them. We sat in a corner, talked amongst ourselves, and did absolutely nothing with them for the rest of the world. And what has happened now? Someone else has been taking them, been given to them, and they've done something else with them. Isn't that what we're witnessing today? And that is the first thing that has to change with our mindset, is how we look at money. Is everybody with me so far? See, it says, 1 Timothy 6, 17 and 18 says, As for the rich in this present age, charge them not to be haughty, nor set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to be good, to be rich in good works, and to be generous and to share. Now, what's interesting, I want to share with you our personal story as we start to focus on money. After reading and studying and looking at different churches and organizations, our whole view of money has changed, and it's affected our lives. Can we go back to the picture of Carmen and I? We got married in December of 2006. Pastor Bonner's wife were at our wedding. And we had a good time, didn't we? We had a 3-day African wedding. And that's one of the slides from that wedding. Okay? Just north of Gainesville, we had the wedding. And in the 3-day wedding, what it gave us a chance to do, we had it at a resort the conference owned at the time. And her family and my family stayed on the compound. We were there for 3 days, so what it really did, it gave us a chance to bond as a family. And it was one of the most exciting experiences to be able to do that. And then you wake up to have breakfast with each other, to have lunch with each other, and then to have dinner, and then wake up the next day, and then these bonds are being formed between the two families. And so for us, the experience was really something that we really wish more people could share with us. After the wedding, the Sunday, Ended on the Sunday night, the Sunday afternoon. The very next day, the Monday, we got together. Carmen and I jumped into the car. We went to just outside the Ocala area to catch a train to Maryland where she was living at the time because we were on our way to our honeymoon. Now, I had planned this honeymoon for some time. And I was doing extremely well in my business running a mortgage company here in South Florida. I lived in Aventura, and she moved from Hollywood with me in Aventura, right on a high rise, right on Biscayne Boulevard. In the planning of it, Carmen was working, doing some marketing for Les Brown. Everybody knows the motivational speaker Les Brown? And Les Brown came to me and said, listen, I want to give you guys a gift for your wedding. And he gave us a monetary gift. And he asked me, well, where are you going on your honeymoon? And I said, Dubai. He said, Dubai? I thought that you were going to the Bahamas. He said, the check that I give you is not going to do very much for you, so let me give you something else. And so right after the wedding, we went up to Maryland and we took a flight to Dubai. Talk to you about mindset for a moment. Now, this was going to be the only chance I had to really do this thing right, because I had planned to just get married only one time, okay? So I said, I'm going to take my queen, and we're going to experience Dubai in luxury. So my plan was to get a first-class ticket on the airlines to Dubai. No, the airlines are typically around $500–600. I expected to pay a little bit more. But this time we flew Emirates, and on Emirates, a first-class ticket is $12,000 for one person. Okay? Now, I had already spoken in the universe that we were going to fly first class. But when I actually looked at the ticket, I could only afford economy. So we bought 2 economy tickets to Dubai on Emirates. But remember, in my belief system, I said that we are going to do this royally, and we are going to experience this. So we get to Dubai. Actually, we flew out of New York, and it was interesting. When you fly a plane this big, it was the new liners that were out. So as you walk from the gate to the plane, there's 2 separate entrances now. You have separate entrance for those who are business class, right? It has its own gate in its own side of the plane, and another entrance for those that fly economy. So as we walked into economy, I peeked over business class and first class, and you could see the carpet was about that thick. I mean, the lighting was different. It was dimmed nicely. And I said, wow, we're going to experience this. Go to the PDF form if you don't mind. We get to Dubai. And first 2 days we're spent with some friends that were in Dubai. And we decided to go to church in Dubai. Now, we were wavering. Should we go to church, or we should just hang out and really enjoy the place? We actually decided to go to church. Now, it's interesting, the churches in Dubai are on a compound. All of them in an area, because the Sheikh does not allow churches anywhere they want to. So they're all relegated to one area. Within 1-2 mile radius, all the churches are there. And one of the things that we were doing for the first 2 days that were there was planning our future. We had already done that, mapped it out. Carmen had a nice job at WEDR, 99 Jams, as an account exec for the company. And as a married couple, we have what we call our debriefing. Now that we're married, let's go over some of the goals and aspirations that we now have as a family. And for us, we had done almost 2 years of psychotherapy. Okay? There's a difference between counseling and psychotherapy. The psychotherapist gets into your mind and helps you rewire the brain as to how you think. Okay? And what's interesting for us, some of the goals that we have, and you see something on the screen, and this is another book that you want to get. It's called The Goal Giver. It's just a very small book. It's about 30 pages in it. And I'm going to point out to you one of the laws that I want to talk about. It's called the law of authenticity. The most valuable you have to offer is yourself. Talking about mindset. So we went to church. And while we were at church, we went to Sabbath school. I don't know if it was the jet lag that got us there so early, but we were there for like 9 o'clock at church. We don't know, that normally doesn't happen here. And we went to Sabbath school, and in the Sabbath school class, we were 3 or 4 different teachers. There was different languages. There was Tagalog from the Filipinos that were there. There was another group. And then there was a brother I saw in the corner. I looked at him, he looked very unassuming. And I said, Carmen, let's check out his class. And as we sat down to talk, and I heard this man's accent, I said, boy, there's a Jamaican in the house. And I said, what are you doing all the way here in Dubai? He says, you don't know Jamaicans are everywhere. So we sat in his class, and at the end of the church service, he said to us, I would love it if you come and visit my house, my wife and I. I said, how long are you here for? He said, 10 days. He says, I know your time is very, very busy, because we have plans to visit Oman and away in the desert. I said to him, you know what? I'm going to postpone what we're doing on Sunday and come visit you. He says, I would appreciate that. Went to the man's house the very next day, Carmen and I did. And he prepared some lunch for us. And as we sat down and talked to him, we noticed he mentioned all the grandkids that he had. And we saw all these toys. And I said, how many grandkids do you have? And he says, just 2. I said, how old are they? Well, his grandkids were adults. I said, why do you have all these toy planes? I mean, little kiddie stuff, and almost all the different airlines he had. And they were all over the house. And we sat and looked at them. First, we were whispering amongst ourselves, wondering if this man is all right because he's got all these toy planes around his house. I said, maybe this is just a fetish of his. So finally, we had enough nerve to go ask him, Leroy, why do you have all these toy planes? He said, oh, I work for the airline. I said, well, what airline do you work for? He says, I'm the vice president of pilot operations for Emirates. Okay? Talking about mindset. I said, really? He said, yes. He's talked about the number of years that he's been there and how well the airline is doing. He says, prior to him coming, for example, we were trying to get a slot. Emirates was trying to get a slot in South Africa. And he said that the sheikh had employed the British first. Okay? He took his spot over from the British. And he said the British were in South Africa looking for a plane slot, a major slot, because they all vie for major slots, good parking slots for their planes to come in. And he said the British would turn up their noses at the South Africans. And as a result of that, the South Africans told them, we're not going to give you a plane slot. You park down here with the budget airlines. He said, well, we're Emirates, and they didn't care. Sheikh decided to get rid of him, brought him in, and he brought his team in from Jamaica, and they were running the show. So they sent them over to South Africa, and all they talked about with the South Africans was Bob Marley and music and food and everything else. And the guy said, well, just pick what slot you want. You just come to take whatever you want. He says, from that time on, he says, I've been reporting directly to the Sheikh, and I'm the vice president of pilot operations. He says, by the way, what airline did you fly over here? I said, we flew Emirates. He said, what class did you come on? I said, we came on coach. He says, sending you back business class. You see the difference now? Mindset. And what we have to do as a church if we're going to succeed in everything that we want to do, in even getting the message out, let's change our mindset. Now, let's go to the presentation. I want you to see how we came with the presentation that we have today. See, this wasn't something that we just invented. This came as a result of reading one of the most powerful books that I've ever read on money, and it's called The Counsels on Stewardship. Now, when Carmen and I do financial seminars, she'll tell you, these churches do their research on us. They know our backgrounds, and they'll tell us, this is what we want you to talk about, but I don't want you to mention that lady's name. And we say, no problem. But we give them the information. Now, here she is talking to a group from Australia, and she says every year many pounds are being swallowed up by the interest paid on debts. If this money was all appropriated to settle the principal, the debt would not be ever eating. Okay? Then she goes on to say, we must do our utmost to prevent those who labor in God's cause from obtaining means to use against us. Keep the money in our own ranks. The more means they obtain, the more they will injure our kingdom by taking from us our subjects. Make them care more for money than for the upbuilding of Christ's kingdom and spread of the truths we hate. And we need not fear their influence, for we know that every selfish, covetous person will fall under our power and will finally be separated from God's people. So here it is. She's talking about kingdom building, and us, we need to have the means in order to do it. But we don't, when we should. So for today, we can't even have a discussion on how we can influence others until we clean up our house in here as to how we personally handle our finances. And that's what I'm going to focus on now for us and show you. So what we did as a company is this. She was one of the first people that we studied who determined that our focus was in the wrong area. Let me give you an example I'm talking about. All of us have heard of another financial seminar that's been very prevalent in all of our churches, correct? And throughout our denomination. And in every financial seminar that you've ever been to, you've always heard that the focus is always eliminating the debt, eliminating the principal, right? Paying down this debt, paying down that down debt, paying the smallest debt off first, right? And after we pay the smallest debt off first, then we can focus on the bigger debts. Have we heard that one before, folks? And how many of us have been taught that? We've all been taught that. Now, what Ellen White did, when we read her work, she decided not to focus on actually the principle of what we borrowed, but she focused really on the culprit, which is the interest. What she says. The interest paid on the debts. Isn't that what she's talking about? So then what we decided to do is, reading what she wrote, is come up with a solution that focuses on the real issue. For example, if you have student loans or if you have a mortgage, when you got your mortgage in Palm River you live, you bought a $300,000 home. Do you realize that $300,000 home, when you add up all the interest at the end of the day, is close to around $600,000, isn't it? Is that correct? So what's essentially happened is you're buying a $600,000 home in a $300,000 neighborhood. Okay? So the problem is what? The interest. So what if we can find a way to eliminate the interest that doesn't have free up more money that we have to pay off the principal? That's what she was talking about. So we got a group of guys and we started searching out for technology and solutions that dealt with what she spoke about. And we brought it, and this is what we have today. So what I'm going to share with you now is what she has been teaching and applied for you for today. Now, 90% of the people that you know with mortgage will never own their home free and clear. 30-year loans should be paid off at an average of 8 to 12 years. All mortgages. Student loans, 2 to 5 years on average. The only way that this can actually happen is through optimization. What do I mean by that? Moving the right amount of money to the right debt at the right time. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean by this. Our goal is to help you own your home free and clear. Okay? Because what's our purpose? It's about kingdom building, right? And if we want to be about kingdom building, we have to remove those things that are preventing us from being able to do that. So here are examples of some current clients of ours today. Here's one we have in Virginia. They have a $500,000 mortgage. They owe 29 years left on it, paying it on with 11 years, saving over $220,000 of interest that they no longer have to pay to the bank. Here's another client of ours. $216,000 loan, brand new mortgage now, paying it off in 5.4 years, saving over $170,000 of interest they no longer have to pay to the bank. Here's another one in Maryland. $419,000 loan, a 40-year loan is what they have. Paying it off in 14.3 years, saving close to $400,000 of interest that they no longer have to pay to the bank. Now, I want to be clear, this is without them having to refinance. This is without change to their monthly payments. And this is also with the monthly budget remaining the same. Now you're looking a little confused of how was that even possible? But this is what we're going to tackle today, because no one else is going to tell you the truth about your loans. Now, as a former mortgage broker, it was very interesting. See, if you came to me to get a loan, and you got that $300,000 mortgage at 3%, and I told you it's going to be 60%, would you still come to me to get that loan? No. You wouldn't do it, would you? But you want to know something? That's actually the truth. And I'm going to show it to you in just a second. Here's something interesting. You're not going to hear this information from many of these pundits, from your accountant, your financial planner, and neither your banker. Now, I've had many debates with them. I had some even actually interrupt my presentation. Did a church in Patmos Chapel in Orlando. Had the presentation interrupted because the person felt that the information I was saying wasn't true until he heard the rest of the story and had to apologize at the end of the service. Because we're trained, if we come from these institutions, that if we don't know the information, that doesn't exist. And there's no new information to be had. You're not going to get this information from many of these financial gurus. I actually love them. I think Dave Ramsey is doing a wonderful job. But it's not teaching what Ellen White is teaching and the way we're teaching it now. It's not doing that. Susie Orton, Gene Chasky. Remember I said to you earlier about paying off the smallest debt off first and how we've all been taught that? What I didn't tell you, that's one of the worst things that you can ever do. And I'm going to explain to you why. Now, here's the reason why we're having issues with these pundits. They're not teaching you how to read and understand exactly how the amortization table actually works. This is actually the Bible of every loan, the amortization table. And none of us read it. So our company, which is called the Pill Method Trust, is just an acronym, stands for prepayment of principal, isolation of principal amounts, leverage, and liquidity. Okay? That's what it stands for. Now, what's also interesting, that formula that you see on the screen, don't you write it down. It's the algorithm that the banks use to amortize interest on loans. I'm going to show it to you from another larger here for you. Here it is. This algorithm or this formula has been around for over 8 years. The banks have not made any change to this formula in over 80 years. You know why? Because it makes them a ton of money. No changes to it. It's exact. Now, let's reverse engineer the process. Because even in the medical field, and Edward, you can agree, everything's done from algorithms. When Carmen had her surgery, it was a robot that was used, which had an algorithm in it. And it knew exactly what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. And as a result, said to her, if you use this device, it will minimize your stay in the hospital and minimize your pain and increase your recovery because it's more exact than a human. Now, if algorithms work for us in the health field, we even use it at home. Do you remember when a washing machine cost $200? At Best Buy now, they're upwards of $1,000 for some of them, aren't they? Why? Because it has an algorithm in it. You put the clothes in, it measure the water. It determines exactly how much electricity it needs to use, does it not? Because so it's energy efficient, so it's going to save you money and time. Now, if an algorithm is good for your clothes, why isn't it good for your money? Because you're still using spreadsheets, aren't you? If banks use algorithms to make money, then why aren't you using it to save money? Am I making any sense to anybody all of a sudden now? The reason why you don't use it because it's to teach you this information. And so what Ellen White was talking about with those individuals who were doing everything to build their own cars and taking money from us from kingdom building. And what we're here today is give you the tools that you really need to put that back and equip you. So now then, I'm going to explain to you why you need an algorithm because you don't know why. So what listeners don't want you to know? They don't want you to know how deceptive amortized interest really is. Because the interest rate you have been quoted is not the interest rate that you actually pay. What do you mean by that, Jason? Well, let's look at that. Here's a $500,000 loan at 3%, and everybody in the room can agree 3% is a good interest rate. It is not. And you said to me, you didn't come to me if I was going to be a higher interest rate. Well, if we make every payment on time and we're never late, in the course of 30 years, we'll be paying to the bank $258,000 in interest. You see that there? You add that now to the principal, we're paying back to the bank now $758,000. Are we not? Does that still look like 3% to everybody in the room? It's a loan all along. Does everybody get that so far? Let me go back over that again. You have a $500,000 mortgage and even a student loan. $2,108 is the payment on that loan that you have to pay. If you make every payment on time and you are never late for the 30 years, you will pay to the bank $258,087.20 in interest. This added to the $500,000 that we borrowed, correct? So in the course of 30 years, it's $758,000 that we paid out to the bank, and now you own the home free and clear, and they hand over the title to you. Do they not? Correct. But what's happened in the process is that that is what you gave to the bank. Now, you were told 3%, but the way it's calculated through the algorithm, you're then paying 51%. You see how that works? Every mortgage is calculated this way. Every single one. Now, God forbid you have a student loan that's even worse than this. The mortgage is calculated by month-end balance, where student loans are interest calculated daily. So a $500,000 student loan, by the time you finish it in 30 years, now that's upwards of maybe $2 million because of how the interest is calculated on that. See what's going on? So what we focus on as a company and as a group is not the interest rate. We focus on the interest cost. How can we cut the 51% in half? You see, because to be honest with you, when you heard 3%, that lulls you to sleep, doesn't it? You assume that you've got a discount or you have a good rate. But if I, as a mortgage broker, said to you, you're really signing up for a 4% loan, you'll look at it a little differently, wouldn't you? So what happened for a couple of years, we got called by Bermuda Conference to go and speak. Who was in charge at the time over there? Manders. Went to Bermuda. This was very interesting. Got there, stayed there for 6 weeks. Took my family with me. And while we were there in Bermuda, the average mortgage in Bermuda is over $1 million. Now remember, majority of Bermudians are black. They're doing quite well. They have these $1 million mortgages, and they're taking flights once a month flying to the United States so they can go shopping. They come to go to school a little good, and they pay for the whole year in advance. They've got money. But guess what? The interest rate in Bermuda is interesting. I'm going to show it to you. Because the same $500,000 loan at 4%, when you add all the interest to it, hold on a second, let me slide in line. It's actually not lining up properly. Let me go back there. When you get this loan in Bermuda, stop here, at 4%, when you add up all the interest, it's actually a 71% loan. Okay? Total interest, you can't see there, of $339,000. At 5%, you're paying back $466,000. So it becomes a 93% loan. At 6%, you're paying back $579,000, which you pay more in interest than what you actually borrow. So 115%. The average interest rate in Bermuda was at 6.75. So that was 120%, and they have $1 million mortgages. They did not realize that. And so as a result, we showed the light on this and told them that you're paying for your mortgages twice. And then they did not realize it. They got upset. The point where many of them actually went to their bankers and to find out if what I'm telling them was actually true. I told them not to do that. Don't let them that, because they'll confess at one point if had to, but it's in your loan documents. Go read it for yourself. I found a report in the Royal Gazette which said that Bermuda had, the banks in Bermuda had collected $12 million in prepayment fees. Explain to you what that means. In the last 2 years. Which meant that the whites in Bermuda done research and said it made better sense for them to make prepayments on a mortgage. And whatever the fee was so minute, they'll pay the fee, but make huge prepayments on loans to pay it off. And so they had elected $1 million for blacks in Bermuda when they saw the fee. They said, oh no, I'm going to continue to make my regular payments on this thing until exposed to them what was really happening. Once they had understanding of what was happening, and many of them started to apply to our program, 2 weeks later on the front page of the Royal Gazette, there was an article, should you pay your mortgage off early? Yes, you should, but if anyone else is telling you how to do it, that is not Bermuda, you don't need to be listening to them. That's what the Royal Gazette said. Attempting to run us out are Bermuda, because the blacks in Bermuda finally learned what was going on and got hip to the game because we exposed what was going on. This is the kind of stuff, folks, that is taking us from kingdom building, okay? So here's a $300,000 mortgage at 4.25%. Look at the interest paid in the first month, which is just over $1,000. The principal paid in the first month is only $413. The total interest paid the first year is over $12,000. And in the first 10 years of the loan, you've paid over $115,000. That's an interest in the first 10 years, which is an average of $962 a month for 10 years. that we do. So in 10 years, the total paid towards the principal is only $61,000. But the bank we paid out $177,000 to the bank. When is this going to stop? That's why we have no money. So, let me explain the rules. Everybody in the state of Florida has this in the loan documents. Prepayment principal clause. And this is what it states. It's the borrower's right to prepay. It says we have the right to make payments of principal at any time before you're due. Payment of principal only known as a prepayment. If I make a prepayment, I'll tell the note holder in writing that I'm doing so. I may make a full prepayment or partial prepayment without paying any prepayment charges. This is in your loan documents. Now, let's get something clear. When we make a prepayment on a loan, that goes directly to what? The principal. How much of it goes to interest? We all agree so far, right? And I'm agreeing with you. I'm going to remind you of that in just a second here. Here's the example that we're going to use. Here's a $200,000 loan at 6% over 30 years. The monthly payment is $11.99. We're explaining how to read and understand the amortization table. Once we understand this, we start to understand the rules of the game, because the banks will never teach you this. So here's a $200,000 loan, $11.99 and 10 cents. For total payments is for 30 years is $360 at 6%. Okay? The total interest paid in the course of 30 years is $231,000, which is more than what we actually borrowed, isn't it? Okay? We add that to the $200,000. We paid to the bank $431,000. So the actual interest cost on this loan is not 6%, but it's actually 115%. We see that so far? Let me explain to you. This is how this works. This is in all of your loan documents. In the first column to the left, okay, is the months, the principal amount, the interest, the cumulative principal, the cumulative interest, and the principal balance. Let's assume that we're making our first monthly payment on this in the month of January, okay, of the $11.99 and 10 cents. The way this breaks down is $199 and 10 cents of it goes towards the principal. The fee for that month is $1,000, which is right next to it. Can we agree on that? We don't get any credit for that, do we? That's the bank's fee for that month. If we subtract the $199.10 from the $200,000 that we borrow, it will give us a principal balance now of the $199,890. You see that there, top right-hand corner? That's the balance, correct? The month-end balance for January, it goes into the algorithm that I shared with you earlier. And what it simply does, it determines the payment configuration for the very next month. So when February 1 comes, we still make the same full payment of the $11.99 and 10 cents. But it breaks out a little differently, doesn't it? In red, we now see we get a credit of $200.10. And what's paid towards the bank for interest is $9.99. We all see that? If we subtract the $200.10 from the principal, our new balance now becomes the $199,680 in February. Now, the balance in the month of February in line 2, it now determines the payment configuration for what next line? Line 3, correct? So March comes and the bank will get the 2 and 110 and the 998. Am I correct so far? We all understand the sequence of events. Now, what's interesting, look at January's principal payment of $199.10 and February, which is $200.10. That's just $1 more, isn't it? We're well on our way to paying this thing off, aren't we? It can't be. Now, let's focus on this $200.10. Remember the rules. We don't have to wait till February to give that to the bank, the $200.10, do we? If we have it in January, we could give it to the bank then, couldn't we? So in other words, we make January's full payment of the $11.99 in January, which is line 1, correct? Any time in the month of January, we can write a separate check to the bank for the $200.10 and tell the bank, please apply this to principal in January. We could do that, couldn't we? If we did that in January, then that means that we're paid down to here in January, $199,680, correct? Because we get Jan's full payment. In the same month in January, we wrote a separate check for the $200.10, did we not? Which they applied that to the principal, so we're paid to the principal balance in January on line 2 of the $199,680. Remember, that goes in the algorithm, and it determines the payment configuration for the very next line. So which means that when February comes, we're now on line 3. So the bank gets the $201.10 and the $998. Am I correct so far? Here's my question to you then, because I'm agreeing with you. If we're on line 3 in February, then what happened to the interest of the $999 on line 2? What happened to the interest? Uh-oh. Someone just said. The bank didn't receive that, did they? We never paid that, did we? Did everybody just get that? No. Okay. All right. So let's go back here a little second ago, because I want to remind you of something. You said to me. You can dim. If we dim the lights, will that make? Let's see if it makes a difference. That helps, right? There we go. There we go. There we go. Okay. Now, let's go back over something. Remember when we went over some of the rules on prepayment? We read it. When you make a prepayment, you have, remember, the borrower's rights to make a prepayment? Then I asked you the question, when you make a prepayment, where does it go to? And you said to me, the principal. Remember that? And then I asked you the question, well, if it goes towards the principal, how much if it goes towards the interest? And what did you tell me? You told me none of it. And I'm agreeing with you. So what you just learned is that when you make a prepayment, it goes towards the principal. So what happened now was that the principal and the interest are connected to each other. Anytime you make a prepayment, it cancels the corresponding interest associated with it. Yes, ma'am. It's gone. It's eliminated. That's what you said. Yes. Yes. The reason why is because they've never been taught. And you got to understand, I have a finance degree and a former mortgage broker. I did not know this information beforehand. Okay? It's not taught to us. Go for it. Okay, let me explain to you this way. We'll make it easy for you. Okay? We have a $200,000 mortgage, right? Let's say, for example, you've made your first 3 mortgage payments. Can we agree that the bank has received $1,000 for payment number 1, they've received $999 for payment number 2, and they've received $998 for payment number 3 in interest? We agree, right? Okay? In interest, they've received that. Okay. But then you just won the Florida lottery. Now, the balance on your loan now is line 3 is $199, $399, and 70 cents. We agree, right? That's the balance on the loan. You just won the Florida lottery, $500,000. Are you going to write a check to the bank for $400,000 or write a check for $199, $399, and 70 cents? $199, $399, 70 cents, correct? And you pay them off, correct? Of the balance of the loan. So then what would have happened to all the interest from line 4 to line 360? gone. You got the point now? You canceled all the interest from line 4 to 360 because you never paid them that, did you? So what you're learning about a loan is this. All a bank ever says to you is this: you owe me $200,000. For every month that you take your time in paying it off, these are our fees. Every time you take your time and pay them, these are our fees. You can pay, they tell you, they're giving you a blueprint for you to follow. You have to pay at least that, correct? Well, I'm not giving you suggestions. I'm just showing you how it works. All right? See, this is what happens with us as black people. We get the theory, then we get excited, and we have all the ideas and when it can happen. But it's a good thing, though. I'm following you so far. You get the point of how this works now, right? For every month you take your time, those are their fees in the interest column. Okay?
So it's really the responsibility of the bank or the mortgage holder to re-amortize that loan every time you make an early payment.
Well, what happens is, all the bank simply does, I'm going to show it to you in just a second how it actually works. So let's look at it this way. You make January's payment, correct? And in the same month in January, what if you gave them a $200.10, 20110 and 20210, and told the bank, please apply this to principal in January? Wouldn't that mean that when we make the so the balance would be down to line 4, the 199, 197, and 60 cents, correct? Because that's all you get in the mail. This shows you what the balance is. They're not going to explain to you what's happening behind the scenes. So which means for you, you're still making the same payment every month. The question now was, what line of the amortization table am I on the very next month? I'm now on line 5, aren't I? I went from January and February, but I'm making May's payment in January. You see the difference? So the bank gets the 203.11 and the 9.95 and 99 cents. Now, for $600, how much interest did I just cancel? Almost $3,000 of interest. Am I correct? For $600 of prepayment, I'm canceling close to $1,000. And so going back to what Ellen White was talking about now, the focus should be on what? The interest. You see that? Because that's what's getting in the way of you paying on principal, is it not? So what you're starting to learn is small amounts of money can cancel large amounts of interest. Am I making sense now to everybody? Can we agree we haven't been taught this before, have we? So if $200 paid on principal saves us $1,000 of interest that we would never have to pay the bank, what if we gave the bank only $100 towards the principal? Wouldn't that eliminate $500 of interest? $50 would save us $250 in interest, wouldn't it? $25 would save us $125 in interest. $12.50 would eliminate $75 of interest, and a $6.20 fee is worth $37.50 to you. You're starting to get this now, right? $3.13 eliminates $18.75. And we can get down to the penny. Go for it.
Where she said, I'm going back to where she said, since the banks don't know it, because you said sometimes the banks don't know it, when you're paying that extra payment, the liability thing is going to take care of that. So
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm saying, you said the bank, some of the people in the bank don't know this, but I'm asking you, so the logarithm calculates the amortization thingy. So although you're paying, and you're paying early, in the bank don't know, does that mean it's still being adjusted?
Yes, it doesn't matter what they know. It doesn't matter what they know or don't.
Okay. You're welcome.
Yes. So what you want to do
on your check,
yes, you want to write, please apply to principal. Okay. Because let me take what happened in the state of Florida. If you don't do that, those of you that escrow, they will apply that money into your escrow accounts. And it will sit in escrows and never get applied to principal unless you specify. Please apply to principal spread in the loan, in the document. Okay? Banks will play dumb with you and say, well, I didn't realize that's what you wanted to do. And they'll park it in the escrow account. That's correct. Okay? So now then, let's isolate a principal amount. See, now we're understanding how this is starting to work. I'm going to isolate 24.56 and a penny. Okay? I'm just pulling this number out of hat arbitrarily. Okay? Explain to you what this is. It just happens to be 12 months of principal payments, doesn't it? The question is, once again, do we have to wait to give this money to the bank in 12 monthly installments? So you're telling me we can give it to the bank in 1 month if we have it? And if we did give it to the bank in 1 month, then what will happen? The very next month's payment will be on what line? 13? Don't take my word for it. There's the math. There's the $200,000 minus the 24.56 and a penny. It comes up to 197,543 and 99 cents. It just happens to be the same principal balance on line 12, doesn't it? So we're paid all the way down to here in 1 month, aren't we? When we make the very month payment now, we're now on line 13. So it begs the question, what happened to all the interest between line 2 and line 12? Thank you. Now you tell me, of all the stewardship and financial seminars we've been to, has anyone shared this information with you? No. No. Now, we agree that we've just saved that money. Look how much interest we would have just canceled, $11,933.19 of interest that the bank did not receive. Could you imagine if all of us in the church had mortgages like this, how much money we'll be able to save as the church? This is the reason when we understand the science of a loan, the pastor doesn't have to get back up in the pulpit and ask the church, the members for money, because we can manage our money in a certain way where it becomes efficient now, right? It's about efficiency. Yes. No. No, it's in your loan documents, though. It's in your loan documents. Mm-hmm. Okay, repeat, Carmen, let her repeat the question again so everybody can hear. Some folks did not hear. Repeat that again so everybody can hear.
No, I was asking if you go to the bank, like you explaining to us now, this format, if we go to the bank, would they give us this layout? The answer to me was no. It's in your loan document. Okay, that's what my mom did show to me when I was a young girl. But I didn't. But she taught me well. Yes. How to pay. Mm-hmm. Other people are not grasping what you have or what you know already. So I'm asking questions. I know what to ask. So that others who may not understand it could hear it not just from you, but could hear it from me as a local member, asking intelligent questions like this. And I'm acting foolish, but really I have an understanding of it.
I want to look at isolation from another perspective real quick.
And to join with Sister Axel, this is exactly what Elder Lewis suggested in 2 years pay off this mortgage. And actually, he did it so well. He did it so well, it took him less than 2 years, because it's supposed to be in June, the same June. Unfortunately, he passed. That was the same June that the mortgage was supposed to be done away. But God planned for him too.
Yes, yes.
Because he gave him the vision.
That's right.
And God put it into action.
Plain. That's right.
And he called him the same month he was supposed to finish paying this mortgage here.
That's all right. Now, let's, the ideas are starting to flow, aren't they? Because you start to understand a few things now, right? Now, I want to be very clear. What I'm sharing with you is informational. It's not instructional. Instructions come later. Because here's how we all starting to think. What we're all starting to think is, well, what if I make an extra principal payment with my mortgage payment? I'm still paying the $11.99, and if I make an additional $200 principal payment, then we would eliminate some interest, wouldn't we? As a matter of fact, let's go back here. If we made an extra $200 principal payment, rather than paying close to $12,000 of interest, we would pay $6,000 of interest, wouldn't we? Because we would be eliminating a month every time we make a payment. So in 12 months, we would have saved 6 months. Am I correct so far? And how many of us would be excited about that? Okay? All of us would be. Now, for us with what we do, remember now, we are about efficiency. I'm sharing this information with you because it is informational, because that is not what we do. So let me give you a clear point. Give me your name. Ansela Anson. This is Carmen over here, as you know. Now, who do you bank with? She's with FBC? Okay, who she banks with? No, it's okay. Can we agree that you're probably getting less than 1% in your checking and savings account at your bank? Isn't that everybody else's account? Okay. Now then, you have a $200,000 mortgage. Let's be very careful. Now, remember I said if we made a prepayment of $2,456 a penny, we will cancel $12,000 of interest, correct? Which is 12 months. Now, not everybody has that, correct? Okay. But I'm going to show you something very interesting. Carl here has a $200,000 mortgage. You look like you're well off. Now then, I need a few favors from you. Okay? She's making regular payments on her mortgage. And she's making, after seeing the seminar, she's okay with making an additional $200 every month towards the principal. I'm very careful now where I'm going with this. Talking about efficiency. But I would do something a little. Would you mind lending her $24.56 in a penny for 12 months? And what she's going to do for you, at the end of the 12 months, she'll pay you a 10% return on your money. Because remember, you already said you get less than 10%. Is that a deal for her? It's a good deal, right? Because she's got an extra $200, doesn't she? So Carmen borrows the $24.56 in a penny from her in January. What's Carmen going to do with that money? She's going to apply the principal on her own, correct? If she does that in 1 month, let's look at this closely. If she does that in 1 month, she would have canceled close to $12,000 of interest that Carmen doesn't have to pay to the bank, right? But Carmen still owes you 10%, owes you that. So what Carmen is doing now, Carmen borrowed the $24.56 and a penny from her, applied it to the mortgage, gave close to $12,000 of interest, and now all Carmen has to do is take the $200 and pay back to her every month. And she's excited because of that to get a 10% return. Now, as tithe payers in this house, what is 10% on $2,456 and a penny? So for $245 that she has to pay her in interest, Carmen gets to save close to $12,000 she doesn't have to pay to the bank. You see the difference? So here's the rule that you're learning. Carmen saved over $12,000, where before you were taking your $10,000 and applying it to the principal every month. You were okay with saving $6,000, but didn't I just show you a way to save $12,000 with the exact same resources? So the point I'm making is cheaper to borrow the money from another source, whether the source is yourself or another entity. Pay that source back over time and give the bank their money up front. You see the difference now? Because of this, what we are focusing on, we want to focus on the interest cost and not the interest rate. Now, I did an example, even in the seminar like this, where I asked a member, what if you had a 20% on a credit card? This is just theory now. And I asked the question to the church, would you borrow $24.56 and a penny off of a credit card at 20% to pay down on a 6% mortgage? And everybody told me no. And I said, why wouldn't you do that? They said, because of the interest rate. I decided to go. And I said, is there anybody in the house who would borrow it at 20% to pay down on a 6% loan? Who would do such a thing like that? Everybody said no. And I said, why? And they all said, because it's at 20%. And I said, okay, let's do the math. Well, we already agreed that 10% of 24 is $240, right? So we just have to double that, right? Which is close to $500, correct? So if I borrow $24.56 and a penny from my card at 20%, they're going to charge me in the course of a year $500 of interest. Isn't it still cheaper than what the bank was going to charge me in the course of a year of $12,000? But the reason why that you never were able to consider it, because the banks have taught us to focus on interest rate as opposed to interest cost. That is true, and how our credit cards are calculated as well. So we focus on interest rate, don't we? As opposed to math, and letting the math determine what our action should be. Yes, ma'am.
Are you saying that the interest rate on the credit card is not calculated like?
No, it's not calculated like a mortgage. It's more advanced. Interest is calculated daily. Okay? Now, if you understand how it's done, you can manipulate it. I'm going to get to that in just a quick moment. See how the ideas are flowing already? I love it. Now, you've been in this loan month after month, year after year. 45 payments later, you pay the loan down by $10,000. I ask you, what did it cost you to pay the loan down by $10,000? And you really don't know. When we pay off our churches and pay the mortgages off, we're just happy and praising God that we paid it off. But no one actually knows at what cost was it. What did it cost us to do that? Now, you actually have to go look in your loan documents to learn, 45 payments later, to pay down this loan by $10,000. It costs $43,939.97, correct? Now, add these two numbers together. Haven't we given to the bank roughly a $54,000 payout for a $10,000 benefit? Now, all of a sudden, this is looking like a payday loan, isn't it? Who would believe that our mortgages are payday loans? Now, let's be very honest with ourselves. I'm a banker in this church. I'm a member of your church. Brother Elder, I'm doing you a huge favor. If I lent him $10,000 in 45 months, I'm demanding a payment of $44,000 of interest plus the $10,000 that he borrowed from me. Would you not be taking me before the board? That's exactly correct. You'd be taking me before the board. But in my defense, all I'm going to do is turn around and say, but this is what you guys already do. So what's wrong with what I'm doing? They're already doing it to you. You just don't know who they are when they go golfing, when you go up and down the 95 and you see. You just happen to know me. There's a face to me. So you want to hold court on me, but you don't want to hold court on them. You see the difference? It's all about perspective, how we look at our money. Now, if it were possible to pay the same $10,000 in principal, but for less than $5,000 of interest, wouldn't you want to know how to go about doing that? Because I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay? Now, every situation is a little different. We're going to use $2,000 in this example. Okay? Our program works whether a person has $1 left over or $21,000 left over. I'm going to use $2,000 in this example because it makes the numbers look good, okay? But I want you to understand the basic theory of leverage is how small amounts of money, as we talked about, can cancel huge amounts of interest. Now, after all the bills are paid, let's say that you have about $2,000 left over the end of the month. Once again, it could be $200. It's the same theory, okay? Now, that being said, we're putting away this $2,000 a month in savings to build an emergency fund. Okay? That's what we're doing every month. And after a period of time, let's say we have about $20,000 in our emergency fund. Now, we could borrow, say, $10,000 in our emergency fund and apply to the mortgage. We could do that, couldn't we? If we did that in 1 month, the very first month of this loan, wouldn't we be paid all the way down to here in 1 month? This $10,000 right there, the cumulative principal, paid all the way down to here in 1 month. Is that correct? Okay. When we make very next month's payment, we would now be on line 46 of the amortization table, wouldn't we? And what would have happened to all the interest in line 2 and line 45? The bank would have never received it. Now, so with the total interest savings of over $41,098 minus the interest we would have paid in the first month payment of $1,000. Now, knowing that, that's my interest cost. Now, after the $10,000 is applied to principal, because whatever we borrow from ourselves, we want to be able to put the money back, right? Because one thing we don't want to do is be cash poor through the process. Isn't it something interesting that I never said so far? Have you heard me say anything about sacrifice in the seminar? But don't you hear it all the time? Has it come out of my mouth? No. The reason for that is because when you know how to get your money smarter, require that. You have to make sacrifices when you don't understand how the system works. And you utilize the system to better yourself. So now, after $10,000 applied principal, how long will it take us to reduce this money, the savings at $2,000 a month? And we agree that it will take about 5 months, right? In 5 months, we would have amassed $10,000 because we have $2,000 every month in savings, correct? Available. Okay? So let's figure the cost to save the $41,988. Because here's the question you always ask yourself: what is my cost versus my benefit? Okay? So the benefit is we would have saved $41,988. The question is, what is this us to that? Let's move this really clear, folks. How much interest is the bank paying us on a savings account? We already determined that, which is less than 1%, correct? All right? To give the bank 1% for this example. So in other words, if that money was sitting in our savings account at 1%, in the course of a year, that will be $100. Let's divide that by 12 so we can find out what the interest is for each individual month. It comes out to 83 cents for 1 month. Now, we agreed that we will be able to place this money back into the savings account in 5 months, correct? Because we have $2,000 every single month. So in 5 months, that's $8.33. The interest cost is $41.65. Let me recap and explain. Remember now, we're taking $10,000 out of our savings, out of circulation. There's a cost to do it, isn't it? There's a cost to leaving it, and there's a cost to borrowing it, correct? Cost to borrowing it, that's our interest cost, correct? So let's go back and recap. You borrowed $10,000 from the savings account, plopped it on the mortgage, paid it down to line 45, which, by the way, equates to 3 years and 7 months eliminated from your mortgage in just 1 month. Okay? You benefited close to $42,000 of interest savings, and it cost you how much to do it? $41.65.
So it doesn't benefit you to leave money sitting in a savings account?
It does not benefit you. So what happens is when you have that money sitting in a savings account, repeat that again.
Basically, it does not help to leave your money sitting in a savings account. It feels good, but it doesn't help to just have money sitting in a savings account when you owe big debt like this. It makes more sense to pay them off. And that's what a lot of people have some trepidation about. They want to have the money for emergencies and all of that stuff, but it's actually better for you to get out of this as quickly as you can.
Yeah, and we show you the sweet spot between what you have for emergencies and be able to pay out your debts. But what's happened is that, for the most part, none of us have ever been equipped with a tool before that measures the interest cost. We don't. And what we're learning is that by leaving $10,000 sitting in a savings account, it's really cost you $41,988.83, isn't it? See, when you know the rules and understand what the cost is, you start to treat your money a little differently now. You may say, you know what, I need to put $5,000 down if I can, because you need to eliminate some of this. You start to see the difference now? How many of you would have figured this information out on your own? No. What we use is an algorithm, because all loans are not created equal. She mentioned she has a student loan. And car loans for that fact too. Car loan, any interest-bearing loans. And I'm going to show you something very interesting about this. Okay? Because we had a client up in New York, at Linden Church, who we sat down with. And he had about $8,000. And his church, he saw the video that Carl and I posted on Facebook, and he says, I need to have you at our church. He went to head pastor. Head pastor told him no. He says, we're already doing another financial seminar, and there's basically no new information. He came to us, got on our program, and he said to us, Jason, I was about to take $8,000 based on the financial seminar that he had already been taught and apply it to the car note, to pay the car note off, because he had been taught to pay his debt off first. And guess what we did? After he saw the video, he says, I've learned not to do that. I said, why? He says, I actually went online, he said, and pulled up an amortization table for his Toyota. When he did the numbers and he would have applied the $8,000 to it, he would have only saved $1,100 of interest. Whereas the same $8,000, if he applied it to the mortgage, would have saved over $20,000 of interest. You see the difference? So there's a law called the law of diminishing returns, which states that that same money, by him applying it to the car note and saving $1,000, as opposed to the mortgage to save $20,000, he just lost $19,000 of potential interest savings. But you've been taught to pay the smallest debt off first. And that's because no one has ever taught you to focus on the interest cost. So in life, what we've all been taught is we have X amount of money left over. Which debt can I apply it to reduce the principal? That's the wrong set of questions that you want to answer. The question should be, what's the most amount of interest I can cancel with this money? Now it matters to what debt that you apply it to. You follow me so far? Because the interest is the culprit, and that's what Ellen White was talking about in her books. That's how we came up with what we did. And we found that when you focus on canceling the most amount of interest, you pay the debts off a whole lot quicker. You got it now? Guys, as we close this thing, and there's a whole lot more that we have, but we're not going to take the time to do that. Liquidity is the ability to access cash on demand. Are we paying out this at an accelerated rate without increasing the budget? Remember I told you that we were going to be able to and still do this without increasing the budget, and we still have money left over at the end of the month. You've heard me say nothing about sacrifice today, because all we're doing is showing you how to make your money smarter at the end of the day. If we are going to be a kingdom building with the same veracity and focus that we focus on our doctrines that we teach, if we just took a little bit more time on focused on the money part, we can make this become more real, couldn't we? We could, as a church body. Years ago, as I close, I was determined to find a church that was debt-free. And guess what? I found one. There was an article back in, what year was that? 2006? 2005. Black Enterprise, the cover of had bishop with a long beard, and he had a fishbowl with cut-up credit cards in it. And his mantra was, you cannot serve the master a MasterCard. I read his article in Black Enterprise, and he said in the article, in his church, they had canceled over $50 million of debt, and 3/4 of his membership were debt-free. I read this article and I said, can this be true? And guess what? There was a phone number there. So I called it. And his assistant answered the phone. She said, tell me the name of the church. There's a missionary Baptist church up in Norfolk, Virginia. Bishop Russell was his name, Vernell Russell. Vernell Russell. And I said, I'm reading the Black Enterprise magazine, and I need to know if what I'm reading is true. She says, yes, we actually do a seminar. We have one next week. I said, how do I become a part of it? He says, well, you can sign up. She gave me the fee, and I jumped on a plane and flew to Norfolk, Virginia. I'm sitting in a room, there's about 12 of us there. Everybody announced the church that they were from, and they wanted to know what position you held within the church, because the assumption was that the church sent you there. So this person said, well, I'm Joseph Jackson, and I'm from this Pentecostal church. Well, Bishop so-and-so, we saw it, and he sent me there. Everybody went around the room, and I came to me, and I said, my name is Jason Thomas. I go to Mount Pisgah, SDA Church in South Florida, and I came on my own. And the bishop looked. He said, nobody sent you here? I said, no, I just saw the article on Black Enterprise, and I want to know what you're doing. He says, wow. He says, I'm going to teach you. Do you know it took him 2 years just to teach the members, change the members' mindset about money and giving before he can even get into the principles of eliminating debt within the church? 2 years it took him. He says, our teachings is based in the book of Acts, when everybody brought their first fruit together. And it was taken and given amongst those who were in need. He says, that's where the biblical teachings come from. He says, these people weren't ready. It took him 2 years. He says, after the second year, he had a service just like this. They had no idea what they were coming for. And God impressed him at that time to call out a member's name. He says, Sister Jones, I need you to come forward. Sister Jones, how much debt do you have? And she just gave a number. He said to the members, we're going to raise this money and pay off Sister Jones' debt. And this is a debt revival that they had. And they had been doing it for a number of years. So by this time, and I'm showing up now, in the back of the room was a TV crew from Sweden doing a documentary about Christianity in the United States in the black church, and had read something about him and brought their TV crew in to do the documentary. And then the week before, as I'm reading this, he's featured on ABC World News. You know, at the end of the week, they have Person of the Week. They featured him. And he said to me something very interesting. He said, all we were doing is just doing God's work. Here we are, there's 4 other churches within a 1 mile radius, and not one other church in a 1 mile radius ever came to see what he was doing. And there's a TV crew from Sweden flown all the way over just to find out what was going on. He says, do you know our congregation has grown by leaps and bounds as a result of our ministry? And he says, we haven't had to do one revival. No tent, nothing. Because we're just implementing what we've been taught by God. So after 2 days of instruction, we had the debt revival. I sat in the front row. The organ was playing. They had Hammonds and the place was packed on a Wednesday evening. Everybody came out. And these were really just regular working people, overalls on, blue-collar workers. And I walked into church at the front as the person greeted me. The lady's arms were wide open. And I said, maybe she knows my face from someplace. And she said, dear brother, welcome to the church. Gave me a big hug. And I said, do I know you? She says, no, but you look like you belong here. Welcome. And I said, why are you so excited? Because God is so good. All of a sudden, my chest was puffed up as I walked into the church, and everybody looked at me and wanted to have a conversation and were just so excited. There was no stress in anybody's face. I sat down in the front row, and there was a big early guy, and he and I started to talk, and I said, how long have you been a member of this congregation? He said, 4 years, Brother Thomas, 4 years. I said, wow. He said, yeah, that person's over here. They're debt-free. This person is. I said, well, how long have they been here? Oh, they've been here for 2, and this person's been here for 1. That one's for 14 years. And I said, wow, there's a lot of men in this church. I said, I've never been to a church where I see the equal amount of men to women. First time in history I've ever seen this before. And he said, well, Brother Thomas, it wasn't always like that. I said, really? He says, technically, I've been a member for over 20 years, but I only came back the last 4 years. I said, why was that? He says, up to that point, he was giving his wife some money for let her go to church and say, give this to the church. But he didn't want anything to do with church. But when he started to see the impact the church was having in the community, he said, I need to be part of this. And he joined. So I said, you have 20-year history, and your wife has been here for 20 years? I said, what does it feel for you to be debt-free? He said, no, we're not debt-free. I said, Brother Jones, your name was never called? He says, no, it hasn't been called. I said, Brother Jones, you can't be happy about that. He said, oh, Brother Thomas, you don't get it. I'm very excited. I said, how can you be? Look, this sister over there, she's been in for 2 years and 4 years, and you've had 20-year history in this church, and you're not debt-free yet? You're still paying your debt? He says, yes, I don't want to be the first. I want to be the last one. I said, why do you want to be the last one, Brother Jones? Because if everybody's paying, then that means they have more than enough money to pay off my debts. You see the mentality? You see the mentality? And the whole trajectory of the church has changed to the point now when any high school student is graduating and going to college, if they maintain a certain GPA, the church gives them a car. Because there's a member who donates the card to the church, which is the tax write-off, is it not? And the church turns around and gives it to a needy student. Then what they also do is there are members in the church who know instruction very, very well, and they build homes for members of the church. So the church would put up the financing to build the house at cost, use the talent within the church, and then the member will go and get a loan against that at cost, but the house already has equity in it, right? Because they're building the house at cost. So all of a sudden now, every church, every house has equity in it. And the members, every member that's selected to get out of debt, as soon as they're selected to get out of debt, they are required to go through a stewardship program where they get instructions about managing their finances so the system is never repeated again. Now, after 4 days of being there, I got excited because we were dating at the time still, weren't we? And I got excited. And I said, this needs to be implemented in our church. And unfortunately, it did not happen. Donated a car, and it sat right in the pastor's parking lot. Twice time. You remember that. It was never given to one of the members. Okay? This is the kind of stuff that we should be doing. Just as we, on the Sabbath, have conversations about doctrine, this is the same conversation that we should be having. Do you realize that when we do these financial seminars, even at Adventist churches, it's very interesting because we get a lot of first-day members who come out, even to the seminars that we do in Adventist churches, because we can talk openly and frankly, right? And what happens is they'll sit right up front here with pen and pad, and they'll take notes. And at the end of the seminars, they'll come up to us and say, wow, I can't believe your churches have been doing this for all this time. Our Sunday churches don't have this information. You guys really have the truth over here. See, they assume this is what we do in all of our Adventist churches. Because they say, you guys got the Sabbath, and now you got the health message, and now you got the financial message, because they realize you're not getting this in all of the churches, but we're not teaching this. And this is what we have to change as a church body. As we are ready to sit down, the last thing I'm going to say to you is this. We've been doing this for many years now, and we love it. This is a passion of ours. When we come into town, we make it a point that we never come into a city and we leave the following day. We're here for at least 2 or 3 more days because it gives us the time to meet with the members who want to learn more. If you find this information valuable and you want to learn how it could be applied, there's a whole lot that I share with you. You never saw the technology that we use. You never saw everything that we really do behind the scenes. All we gave you today was informational, correct? But if you want to know the month and year that you can do that free, we do a free sales analysis. We'll meet with one-on-one. We'll show you technology that we actually use that actually does the work for you, that accomplishes everything that we're talking about. If you want to learn information, we'll be happy to share that information with you after Sabbath hours. Because this is what we do. Yes, one last. You can talk to us afterwards, and we'll be happy to share all that information with you. Okay? We have everything you need.
Anyone else have a question pertaining to what you've seen
Before we close.
before we close? I just have one thing that I really want you to go over because I've seen it and I think it's very important and I think it would help. Refinancing.
Okay.
Is that too heavy for right now?
I can cover it in 5
or
minutes.
you could do the down payment one. Either one. I think they're still the same.
Okay. Can I cover this in 5 minutes, guys? Okay. Let's cover down payment deception real quick. If you can look in that presentation for me, scroll down until you see one that says down payment deception. The slide that says down payment deception, and start from there. Yes, the refi is a deception. As he's looking for that, let me tell you a little bit about refinancing. Can we agree, every program that a bank has on itself makes money for the banks, correct? There's nothing that they don't have that doesn't make any money. Okay. So now you're in a loan at whatever the interest rate is, and the bank is calling you to refi. And they're calling you to help you save money, correct? We can refinance this loan and save you money. Isn't that what you hear all the time? Okay? Now, we agree there's nothing on the shelf that does not make money. Remember now, there's only two participants in this equation. There's you and the banks, right? So if the banks are calling you to help you save money, then who's losing it? Right. So, because it doesn't make sense if the bank is calling you to save money, and then they in turn are losing money, right? That just doesn't make any sense. So it begs the question as to what's really going on. And what's really happening is this when you refinance your loans. Most of us, that's a different thing. If you're refinancing to pull money out, that's one thing. But if you're refinancing your loan to get a better term, to get a better interest rate, you're doing it to save money. That's one of the worst things that you can actually do. And the main reason for that is that every time you refinance your loan, number one, you start the clock all over again. And the goal is to get to line 360 as quickly as possible. But what happens is we don't really have 30-year loans anymore in this country. We have a string of 7 to 10-year loans. Because every 7 to 10 years, we start the process all over again. Isn't that what we do? And refinance. And so what happens is, remember we had $10,000 applied to principal. We eliminated 3 years and 7 months. And we saved ourselves over $41,000 of interest. Do you remember that? Our focus is not the interest rate, it's the interest cost, correct? So by eliminating $41,000 of interest, effectively in your interest rate, are you not? Because if you have a $200,000 loan and I cut your interest cost by up to 75%, your effective interest rate by the time we finish with you is around 1 or 2%. So you can reduce it by canceling the interest rather than refinancing it. Does that make sense to everybody? That's how you do it. If you want to get a cheap loan, then cut the interest cost. Cancel the interest. Now, the last thing you want to do, show you here, is down payment deception. Now, how many of us have heard this before? When you pay on a house, when you're looking to buy a home, you want to put as much money down as possible. You've heard that one before, right? So you can pay the smallest, right? And we've all been taught that. Make the largest down payment. Even buying a car, you want to put as much money down as you possibly can. Now, and everybody will teach you that that's the way to do it. Now, with us, that's the worst thing you can do. Changing the rules for you. Never make a large down payment on anything if you can avoid it. Let me show you why in just a second. Okay? You want to put down when you get a loan, you want to put in the least amount. Obviously, the least amount that is within your budget, obviously, right? I'm explaining to you why. Now, I met with a group of accountants, realtors in Maryland, going over the exact same thing and teach them how to get more clients. A local businessman is building a home for $400,000. He asks if he should put $100,000 down. So what happened in this case is a client of ours. He sold his previous home. So he had $100,000 in proceeds from the sale of his previous home and is building a new home now. So he has a $400,000 house that he wants to purchase. He asked his realtor if he should put $100,000 down so he could finance $300,000 instead of $400,000 at 3% over 30 years. Okay? That was his question. Now, I told him to get the $400,000 loan. His realtor and his mortgage broker told him, listening to me, I'm crazy, and that he needs to get the $300,000 loan. Okay? Now, quick side-by-side. I'm going to show you these numbers. So this is what the realtor and the mortgage broker pulled up for him, the side-by-side comparison between the two mortgages. You see 400 and 300. Let's go down. Now, notice the payment is slightly smaller than the $300,000 loan, right? It's $1,264 as opposed to $66. Now, mind you, for him, he can afford either one of them. It's not an issue for him. Now, both of them at 3%. He's going to pay a lot less in the course of the loan, $455,000 on the rise as opposed to $607. This is the argument that they're building. Oh, sorry, I pushed the wrong button here. Now, notice the percentage on both of these loans is 51%, what we call a return on investment for the bank. This is important to know because banks look at ROI, or return on investment, right? And they look at risk factors. So from a banking perspective, as a banker, same thing for you. If this was your money and you have $400,000, it will behoove you to get as much money as back as possible, right? Because less risk. So they can get $100,000 back for the same return on investment. Both of them are 50%. So getting back $100,000 is more efficient for the bank because the ROI is the same. But what's interesting is this. The difference in interest between the two, $51,779.60. So his realtor and his mortgage broker are both telling him, if you get the $300,000 loan, it will save you $51,779.60. So far, I agree with them. The math does not lie, does it? Still not the way to go. I still told him, get the $400,000 loan. Because if he could get $400,000 loan, where's this $100,000 right now? It's in his pocket. Okay? Now follow me very carefully. He listens to me and gets the $400,000 loan, right? He makes his first mortgage payment on the loan, which is the $1,686.42, right? We agreed that the $100,000 is sitting in his pocket, correct? Yeah. Now what could he do with that $100,000? Oh, he could do that, couldn't he? And if he did that, applied it towards the principal, he would be paid all the way down to line 125 in 1 month, wouldn't we? There's $100,000 applied in the cumulative principal. He would have saved over $110,000, wouldn't he? When he makes his very next month's mortgage payment, what line would he now be on? 126, wouldn't he? Because he listened to me. If he listened to his realtor or mortgage broker, when he makes the very next month's mortgage payment, what line would he be on? Is there a difference between being on line 2 and line 126? It's 10 years and 3 months. He eliminated 10 years and 3 months off the loan with the exact same resources. Same with the same $100,000. So what you realize, you never want to use the money to make a down payment. You want to use the money to make a prepayment. You get it now? There's a reason why they'll never teach you this, because it benefits them. They would lose. Okay? This is what, same thing with a car note. When you get a car, you borrow as much money as you can. You hold on till you get secure that car, Then you take that money after you get a loan and you apply towards the principal, and boom, you move further down the amortization table. And another quick secret about a car note that I'll tell you to do is that let's say your payment is $400, okay? Rather than paying the $400 once monthly, pay $100 a week, which comes up to $400, right? In the course of a month. What happens is with a car note, they apply that money immediately towards the principal, so you pay less interest. It's the same money, but just break your payment up because of how it's calculated. So what ends up happening at the end of the term, you pay less interest. So you pay off the car note faster with the same money. Just break up the payment. Yes, say $400. Yeah, whatever it is, whatever the payment is, just take it up, split it up into 4 payments, and you pay the car note off earlier. She says this principle applied to student loans.
You may have to do the student loan piece because it's a little convoluted.
Okay, before we get to that, let me go to the student loan. No, so going back here.
She's asking about the car, what you just said.
Oh, sorry, go with the car.
When you're looking for a car, is it better for a buy here, pay here loan, or the 60-month, or the 36-month, or cash when it comes to buying a car? Because sometimes you can buy a car through a bank, sometimes you can buy it through a credit union. It's different ways to buy a car.
I prefer the credit unions than I do banks. Credit unions have more of the consumer's interest at heart as opposed to banks. Okay? So remember, because credit unions are more community-based, whereas banks, I consider them more hawks or more sharkish. Hawkish, all that. So you'll find credit unions are going to be a little bit more favorable. Now, I always stretch out my term for the longest period of term available. Okay? It doesn't mean that I'm going to take that long to pay it off, because the longer the term is, remember, you're going to be coloring the payoff of that loan anyway. You never want the banks to control your payments. So it's like a mortgage. You never get a 15-year mortgage. You get a 30-year mortgage, you make a 15-year payment yourself. You see the difference? You never want to put that control in banks' hands. Okay? You never want to do that.
One question here.
Oh,
She was asking about student loans.
Yeah.
I'm going to get to that. So let me finish this here now. We have 10 years and 3 months left on the mortgage, right? Now only has 19 years and 9 months left on this loan. Continue to use our method of the strategic payoff of the algorithm that we use. This guy is paying off the entire loan in 7 years and only paying a grand total of $30,000 of interest on the entire loan. Now you tell me, would you get a $400,000 loan from and only pay the bank back $30,000? Nowhere. So you see why I say I don't care what the interest rate is of 6%. By the time we finish with him, his effective interest rate is around 1 to 2%. You see the difference? Now, student loans. Now, of course, I'm now his new best friend, right? Stop building the bank's fortune. Let me see if I have a slide in here for the student loans. I'm sure I have it. This is a little bit of our algorithm, our software. But let me pass that and get to the student loans. Student loan larceny. I'm going to show you student loans are the most dangerous of all the loans, but the easiest off. Easiest ones, but the most dangerous ones because of how the interest is calculated in the student loan. Here's a quick example. $9,500 student loan, 6%. Okay? Question is that $50 a month, how long do you think it will take you to pay this off? Okay, she says 20 years. 601 months over 50 years at $50 a month. Now, let's look at this, what's happening here. At $50 a month, at 6%, the total interest paid on this is over $20,000. Okay? $20,550. You add that to the principal, we're paying back to the bank over $30,000. So the effective interest rate is over 216%. Now look at the simplicity of paying off a student loan. This is now, what happens is a lot of us have a $9,500 student loan, but we have multiple ones, right? So we may have 5 of these or 10 of these or 4 of these, whatever the amount may be. But let me show you how simple this is. When you make a $50 payment on the student loan, only $2.50 of it goes towards the principal. The interest is $47.50 for that month. You got that? That's it. So what happens at the end of the month, the balance now is $94.97.50. So month number 2, if you make the very next month's payment of the same $50, only a penny more goes towards the principal. And the bank's fee is $47.49, correct? Now watch this. Go down here so you can get this. What if we prepaid $30.84? Made a prepayment of $30.84. That's a dinner for 2 people, isn't it? Is that aware? These days, dinner for 1, right? Now watch this. Show you the simplicity of this. If you prepay $30.84, it will eliminate all the interest between line 1 and line 11. Show it to you here. Look what it would cancel $569.16 of interest. $30.84 would cancel $569 of interest for you. Now look at it from another perspective. What if we prepaid $66.39? Can you see on the screen $66.39 would eliminate over $1,138.61 of interest? That's doable, is it not?
But I think that one of the challenges is most people have deferred them. Can you explain what deferment does to a student loan?
Deference does not stop the interest calculator from ticking. It does not. The interest still, it just defers what you owe, but by the time you start to pay it, your balance has changed. Because the interest still is accruing when you defer on the student loan. Okay? Now, what's bad about the student loans, it is the only loan of all loans that you can never file bankruptcy on. You can get out of almost any of the debts, but not a student loan. The government does not allow you to circumvent getting out of a student loan. Okay?
She asked the question about consolidating them, and is that a good idea if they all have different interest rates?
No, I don't like consolidation for the student loans. And the reason being is because what ends up happening is this. When you take all of the different loans and consolidate it, you now have one payment. Okay? If you did not consolidate that loan, then what it will allow you to do is eliminate one loan or 2 loans, and now you have some money freed up, correct? To be able to be applied to start eliminating other loans as well. You can do that. It's all connected together in one loan when you consolidate that. And what happens is that their interest is protected because they consolidated to make sure everybody gets their share of the money. And you have no out. So what you want to do is, if avoiding consolidating the student loans, we'll actually show you how to go about eliminating the most costly student loan. Then once that's done, then that money's available and freed up. That frees up your budget. But your budget will never be freed up if it's all in one lump sum of $500 to $600 a month that you actually have to pay, as opposed to $100 here, $20 here, $50 here, another $20 here. You never have that luxury of freeing up that money.
She has one more question.
One more.
Go
So
for
the
it.
loan that should be targeted, should it be the one with the highest interest rate? If you
No,
have
highest interest cost.
Okay.
right.
Highest interest rate doesn't necessarily mean the highest interest cost.
Gotcha. Which
So
actually requires you to pull out the documents. See, this is what a lot of folks that we talk to and counsel struggle to do. They don't know where the documents are, they can't find them, they've been whatever. You can go online and recreate your loan scenario, just like this one here, and see your amortization schedule. So the point of it all is this. You have to get the documents to do this. It's not something that you can just willy-nilly do. Mm-hmm. And when you have multiple ones, that's really tricky. And I would suggest you call the office and talking with one of our financial coaches to help you through it. Because a lot of people don't realize that all of this is instructional. Informational, not instructional. If you try to do this on your own and say you have 4 student loans plus a car note and a mortgage and a credit card and you'd lose your mind because the variables for each are too different. Does that make sense? Like at the end of the month, you have to look at what you have left. You have to go amortization schedules. You have to do the math, figure out which one's going to be. Nobody's going to keep that up. You'll give up after a while.
No. Yes.
Let me say this. Let me give you the phone number. It's 256-258. 9393. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it again. 256-258-9393. Again, 256-258-9393. Our financial coaches will talk to anybody who calls. There's no fee for that. Now, if you call in 20 times in a week, then now we got to talk because at that point. But the information that we're sharing is for anyone, just like this information that we're giving to you now is free. Clients, that's a different thing. So if you want to become a client, that's something that we could talk about after Sabbath. But this is information that you have an example. What should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? Based on my scenario, based on my situation, then yes, a financial coach will talk to you.
We'll take these last 2 questions. And we'll
1 second, let me get her.
Is it the same principle for credit card payment?
Yes and no. So we got to remember now, as I said earlier, all interest is not calculated equally. Whereas the mortgage is calculated by the month-end balance, credit cards are calculated by the daily average balance. You see? So our goal is to be able to cut your interest costs. So when you're paying on a credit card, it matters to what day and how much you put on the credit card. But there's ways to get around saving interest on credit cards. And I'll share some of those secrets with you afterwards. But credit cards are much easier to deal with.
I have a question. Yep. You take out a student loan.
Yes.
Is it possible, or would you advise that you pay off find what the interest is, pay that off before the child finishes school, college? That he go ahead and pay off?
You pay the principal off.
The principal, the interest.
No, you pay the principal off.
Okay.
If you pay the principal, you cancel the interest, remember? So, yes, your question is it advisable? Because remember, the longer you wait to pay that loan off, that interest is going to accrue. And what you're basically saying is that you don't want to have to pay all that interest at the end of the day. To avoid doing that, the sooner you pay off the loan, the better off you are. Yes, while the child is going to school, you can be paying on the student loan. That's exactly correct. That's exactly correct. It's very smart to do that.
Okay, before we close with prayer, it's just some instruction for tomorrow. How many people are interested? Because we, of course, have to make sure there's enough food for the cooking class. How many people are interested in coming to the cooking class? It starts at 10 o'clock. will be done at 12. So how many is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, just some quick, 11? Okay, some quick information about the class. There is a booklet that you receive that you can write in. It has your recipes in it. It also explains some of the ingredients and what they're good for your body. That booklet is $8. And your food, of course, comes with it. Okay? So you pay the $8, you come to the class, come